Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. These are the books that I've been reading this week. So, maybe I'll start off with the classical tragedy, Greek and Roman. I finished the Eumenides, the final play in the Orestia trilogy, and I, perhaps rather shamelessly, made two videos out of it. I did one video reviewing the Eumenides, and then I did another video trying to encompass the Orestia trilogy as a whole. Even though I reviewed it in three different parts, I did one more video. There was also in this edition a little essay at the end called Form and Persecution in the Orestia by Kenneth Burke, which was not really appropriate for an introductory text. I guess I'd have to blame the editors of this book rather than blaming Kenneth Burke. But, the text is supposed to be like an introduction to classical Greek and Roman tragedy, I think, right? That's the vibe they're going for here. And then that essay at the end is just like going for like a grad school level scholarship where they're assuming you already know a lot about the discourse of drama. But I struggled my way through it anyways. And then, whilst searching the internet for more information about this translation by Tony Harrison, I discovered that this translation was actually filmed for British television in 1883 by, I believe it was Channel 4, and aired and is available on YouTube. So I'm taking a break from reading the plays and am now watching the dramatization now. Just as the play is in three parts, the Orestia play is a trilogy, the dramatization is in three parts. I've finished Agamemnon, the dramatization. I'm in the middle of the Libation Bearers, the second one. Actually, not in the middle of it. I'm almost finished with it, watching the copies off of YouTube. And then I'll watch the last play in the trilogy, the Eumenides, or the Furies, as it's translated as both. And then I'm going to come back and give some sort of review of the experience of watching the filmed version of the play. I'm glad I'm watching it dramatized. I'm glad I'm watching the live action version. It's helping me to absorb it a lot better. Some of the dialogue I'm taking in afresh, stuff that I didn't fully absorb when I was reading it. Some of the dialogue in the drama is spoken a little bit too quickly and just kind of loses me. So, some stuff hits me more clearly. Some stuff I lose a little bit, but I'm glad I'm watching it. And I'm not going to, the next play is Prometheus Bound in this collection, but I'm not going to move on to that until I've finished watching the dramatized, the live action version on YouTube. The other book I finished off The Adventures of Robin Hood by Roger Lancelyn Green. I was almost finished with it last Sunday, but I finally did finish up the last few pages and filmed a review of it. And then decided, why not? Just move on to the next Robin Hood book. This is Robin Hood by Henry Gilbert, and I did film a started video earlier this week. So it's labeled as a classics, Wordsworth Classics. There's very little information about this on the internet, or at least on Wikipedia, on the first few pages that pop up. Henry Gilbert was apparently a British writer. There's about a paragraph about him on Wikipedia. He wrote a handful of books that are still in print today, including this one, but no information about them on Wikipedia. There's no dedicated article to any of these books. It appears, though, and I'm about 50 pages into this now, it appears to be that Henry Gilbert is largely just making up his own story, loosely based on the idea of Robin Hood. At least that's the impression I've got from the first 50 pages. We'll see if the rest of this book becomes a little bit more faithful to to the traditional version. Now, as always, take my opinion with a grain of salt because I'm not a scholar. I just, Wikipedia is my main source of information. But as far as what I've been able to glean from Wikipedia when I was reading the two previous Robin Hood versions, I think Henry Gilbert is just making up his own thing. He's got this long introduction to how Robin Hood becomes an outlaw based on how, there's a number of things going on. There's a knight that is waiting in ambush to attack Maid Marian, and so Robin Hood defends Maid Marian against a rogue knight. And then Sir Guy of Gisborne, who is the lord of the manor in this version, is going to sell off his serfs. And so Robin Hood leads an uprising of the serfs. Yeah, here's a picture of fighting the rogue knight. It's interesting though. It's well written, and it's a different story. And different is good. I would have been a little bit bored if it was just the same Robin Hood story repeated yet one more time. So I'm happy to have a different story. In the Bible, I'm reading 1 Kings, and I am just about finished up with that. And in fact, I've actually got less than a chapter left to go. I really should just finish this off before bed. And then I imagine I'll be filming a review of it maybe tomorrow. So stay tuned for my review of 1 Kings. And then Astro Boy Omnibus, I read from page 32 to page 180. Reading this story now about, it's a little bit strange, but I mean that in a good way. It's fun to read kind of these far out stuff. There's a queen of the north who's got all these robots who are actually cyborgs that have been dogs that have been turned into robots. One of the robots' dogs is the old dog of Astro Boy's teacher. And so Astro Boy gets the robot dog to realize who his former master was. Now, the robot dogs are on a mission to prevent anyone from getting to the moon, presumably because of all the diamonds on the moon. This was written in 1961, so before the first moon landing. Now Astro Boy and the dog robot cyborgs are trapped on the moon, and they are finding a city of diamonds underneath the moon. Again, a pretty difficult story to summarize, and pretty silly. But I like these kind of bizarre stories. It's good fun. So up to page 180 in this, and I think that's it. I think that's all I have to report for this week. So thank you very much, BookTube, and I will see you again next week.